Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. Vayishlach, and he sent. Joseph Campbell said, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure which you seek." The he in this parsha is Jacob, and what he sent is messengers. He sent them to see his brother Esau. This parsha is partly about the reunion of Jacob and Esau, although many commentaries do refer to it as the confrontation. It, like so much of Bereshit or Genesis, is full of larger-than-life people, places, and events which have left an indelible effigy in our collective consciousness of the history of Judaism and Western religion. We all know the characters involved in the stories which have played out. We began on a grand scale with Adam and Eve and creation, moved on to Noah and the flood and the mythic Tower of Babel, and then began the story of the patriarchs, of Abraham, whose covenant with God is still a cornerstone of Judaism, of Isaac and his near sacrifice on Mount Moriah, and of Jacob, who we were introduced to a scant few weeks ago, and his coming on the heel of his brother Esau and the deception in obtaining the birthright and the blessing of Isaac. And here we are about to witness a reunion 20 years in the making, during which time Jacob has worked for his uncle Laban and has married Laban's 2 daughters and fathered the 12 tribes of Israel. So much takes place in this parsha. Jacob returns to the spot where his dream of the ladder took place. He wrestles a being. To some it was an angel. To some it was an evil spirit. And to some it was God himself. His name is changed to Israel, meaning he struggles with God. And I wonder whether Israel is more a term instead of a name, since he is still referred to throughout the balance of his life as Jacob, whereas the others whose names were changed, such as Abraham and Sarah, never went by their old names again. Friends, our sages have oft wondered, who does Jacob wrestle? It's not God, and it's probably not an angel, because this being loses power in daylight, and so perhaps it was a night spirit. But perhaps for this dark night of the soul episode, it is really all the dark parts of Jacob, and he wrestles to see which part of himself will triumph. This too becomes a defining moment and possible change of character. He has been deceiver and deceived, a manipulator. He has hurt and been hurt. He has struggled and prospered. He is father and husband. He was a man of action, but becomes passive like Isaac. This fight leaves an indelible mark on Jacob. All of us who have come after him and are the children of Israel struggle with God at some point in our lives, and perhaps that is what makes us in fact the children of Israel. He fathers the 12 tribes, has his daughter Dinah raped, sees his true love Rachel die, and more. We see the binary division which runs throughout the whole Jacob saga falling into place. We had 2 brothers fighting for parental blessing, 2 sisters fighting for a husband's love, flocks divided into unicolored and speckled, and now Jacob's goods are cut into 2 camps out of fear. There is so much here, but there are certain recurrent themes also, the 2 most dominant being deception and facing things. The 2 early defining moments of Jacob's life were based on deception, with Esau, with Isaac. At the end of the prior parsha, he fled Laban with his family and goods rather stealthily, and his wife Rachel deceives her father and Jacob in the incident with the household gods when she hides them and pretends she is having her period to prevent being searched. And Jacob says to Laban, "Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not remain alive." For many commentators, this was in effect a curse being placed upon Rachel by Jacob, for she indeed did have the gods, and subsequently died in childbirth with Benjamin. Rashi made an interesting comment on deception regarding Jacob's sending the messengers at the beginning of this parsha, when Jacob instructs them to say in Genesis 32:5 to Esau, "I have stayed with Laban and remained until now." Rashi says that meant that Jacob the deceiver met a deceiver and learned how it felt to be the recipient of an injustice, and that he learned that it hurt. We saw this was his karma coming back. As the great John Lennon said, instant karma's going to get you, going to knock you right on the head. Jacob was making his karma by his world of deception. There are other instances of deception. Following the incident with Dinah, when the men of Shechem are told that in order for there to be intermarriage, the men of the village must be circumcised. They agree, and subsequently Simeon and Levi kill them all. Deception has now gone throughout the entire genealogy of Jacob, his mother, himself, and now his children. Interestingly enough, his brother whom he deceived to obtain the birthright deceived no one, although there is a midrash which says everything Esau did was motivated by hatred, except his reunion with Jacob. But friends, there is no evidence anywhere that this is true. This parsha is also full of facial references. Jacob will face his past and the brother he wronged. He left his father who could not see his face. He fights a man, angel, demon, face to face, and names the place Peniel, which means face of God. He says he faced God and lived, and he says to his brother in 33:10, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God. But there's something even more powerful that Jacob does not face, and that is fear. At the very beginning of this parsha, in Genesis 32:8, it says, and Jacob was greatly frightened. Again in 32:12, save me from my brother's hand, from Esau's hand, because I fear him. In 34:30, he says to his sons, you have brought trouble on me, making me odious among the inhabitants of the land. He goes on to say, my men are few in number, so that if they, the Canaanites, unite against me and attack me, I and my house will be destroyed. His fear is his motivation. He fled out of fear over 20 years earlier, and he has carried that fear with him the entire time. Friends, how long have you carried your fear? The Greek philosopher Plato said, we can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Fear is crippling. And while Jacob did flourish during that time, he was a constant prisoner of events which never took place, because fear is a projection of something that never happened onto the present, and it keeps you a prisoner. The twin festivals of light, which are almost upon us, take place during the darkest time of the year, the month of Tevet, or Capricorn, because that is the part of the year ruled by fear and by time, and fear and time go inexorably hand in hand. Fear paralyzes us and steals time, and time is the one thing you never get back, friends. And the twin festivals of light celebrate the growing light that allows us to see things differently. In Genesis 33:4, we are told that Esau ran to greet him, embraced him, and kissed him. Esau obviously harbored no grudge. So who had really suffered? I believe it to be the one whose life became motivated out of fear. Esau alone weeps at the reunion. Jacob stays impassive, and he puts forward his belongings in the order he is willing to lose them. Concubines and their children, Leah and hers, and then Rachel and Joseph, all because of fear. And he ends the reunion as it began, with deception. He convinces Esau to return home to Seir to await him, but he does more than take his time. He, in fact, turns in a different direction so that he will not come to Esau, and the brothers are never mentioned again as brothers. Aristotle said, he who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Friends, what do you need to be free? In 1991, there was a marvelous movie released called Defending Your Life. I watch this film annually. It's about what happens when we die. We end up in a place called Judgment City, where days or incidents out of our lives are examined, all in the determination by the assessors of whether we move on or come back. And it's all about fear, and how when we let fear rule our lives, we have to come back because there was nothing ever to fear, and there is nothing ever to fear. But we have stopped our hopes, our dreams, and our wishes out of fear. My friends, God will be with you, and when you are with God, there is nothing to fear. It is my annual reminder to review anything I might be afraid of and let it go. Do you know which fear imprisons you? I'm reminded of you'll never walk alone from the Man of La Mancha. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden light and the sweet silver song of a lark. Shabbat Shalom.